What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Cody and Derek, back with another one, guys. And guys, we are officially now to week one for the Indianapolis Colts of the regular season. Derek, it's been a long time coming, but we have officially made it. Thank goodness. It's been a long time, and we are ready to rock and roll. But guys, to kind of set the stage before week one, we wanted to kind of talk about a couple things. And in this video specifically, we wanted to give some Colts predictions for the 2024 season. So there's been a thing going around Twitter. Our friend Logan actually posted this, and I kind of reposted it with my thoughts. So that's kind of where we got the idea. So shout out to Logan at Scotty Colt on Twitter. But we wanted to kind of talk about this today and give some predictions. And we have multiple categories here that we're going to talk about today. And Derek, I've already given mine on Twitter. I don't know if I've heard yours yet, so I'm very curious how ours kind of align and how ours kind of differ in certain ways. But anyway, before we get into that, guys, just want to let you know this episode is presented by Prize Picks. Be sure to visit prizepicks.com today or use your mobile app. When you sign up, use the code BTJ for a $100 deposit match. All right, Derek. So like I mentioned, there's multiple categories here. Here are the categories that we are going to be talking about today and discussing. The couple that we have here: MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved, and Rookie of the Year. So 5 categories that we're going to talk about today, Derek. So I'll let you start with the MVP in your mind. Who would that be for you?
Well, it kind of goes back and forth for me. I would love for it to be Anthony Richardson. I think that this is the year where we're still going to see a lot of up and down things for Anthony Richardson this year. So I don't think this is quite his MVP type of year for this offense. So I'm going to give that title to Jonathan Taylor. If Jonathan Taylor remains healthy, then it just makes absolute sense that Jonathan Taylor would be the MVP of this team because, it runs through Jonathan Taylor still. Even if Anthony Richardson takes quite a bit of the rushing away from him, he's still going to have your over 200 carries. He's still going to get you 1,400 yards. He's still going to get you double-digit touchdowns. I mean, he's going to continue to put up those kinds of numbers that we expect from a Jonathan Taylor. Maybe not quite the numbers that we saw in 2021, but if he remains healthy, Jonathan Taylor will once again still be a top 3 running back in the league, and he'll show you why he was worth that contract last year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Derek. I'm definitely going Jonathan Taylor as well for my MVP. I mean, like you mentioned, AR, as much as a lot of people were trying to crown him as like the next MVP this year, I'm right there with you. We've kind of been like, pump the brakes a little bit on AR. I mean, this is essentially his pseudo rookie year, right? Like, so he's going to have some bumps in the road. That's to be expected. Now, if you're talking about, like things like fantasy MVP, okay, like that's more of a like legitimate thing. But as an actual NFL MVP, I don't know if Anthony Richardson's there yet for my liking. So for me, I think Jonathan Taylor has to be the player that you pick here. I mean, I think there's no question the offense is going to run through JT. I mean, he's fully healthy, which is great. And I just think, Derek, he's going to have a monster bounce back season. He had a disappointing season last year in a lot of ways with the injuries and just all the other issues. But Derek, I think to me, this is kind of the closest we'll see to that 2021 Jonathan Taylor type of season because he actually is going to have a legitimate like head coach that's going to be able to use him. And we even saw it, Derek, when like he was in Shane Steichen's system at the end of the year, like how well he ran the football, right? So I think definitely Jonathan Taylor is going to be a guy that for the Indianapolis Colts, he's going to be the MVP. Like as much as AR, I think is going to open some things up for him. And I think the Colts are actually going to have a legitimate passing game for the first time in a while. I do think still the offense does run with Jonathan Taylor and through Jonathan Taylor. And I think that will be the case for a while still. So Jonathan Taylor, no doubt for me, is going to be that guy for the MVP for this team. Now, looking at the offensive player of the year, this is where things kind of get interesting, Derek, because I know we differ a little bit on this. Where are you going on the offensive player of the year?
Offensive player of the year, I am going to go with Anthony Richardson here. Again, not MVP, but when you look at the offensive statistics, as long as Anthony Richardson remains healthy, Anthony Richardson will have the numbers to back up an offensive player of the year candidacy. I mean, again, Cody, we're talking about like we're looking at some of the betting odds, and a lot of people were saying like the number of rushing touchdowns for Anthony Richardson is like set at like 7. And I mean, I know that the Colts have like people are saying, oh, the Colts need to do better about not running the football with Anthony Richardson. But I mean, Shane Steichen has told you like we're not planning on changing our system very much, so like they're still going to continue to be stuff that you're gonna see from Anthony Richardson. And Anthony Richardson in the first 3 games that he played in had 4 rushing touchdowns. So I mean, it would be blasphemous to think that he couldn't possibly hit 7 in a season of 17 games. Now, obviously, they're probably also taking into account the fact that they probably don't think he's going to be around for very long this year. So, if Anthony Richardson does the same thing as Jonathan Taylor, and they're healthy for the majority of the season, then Anthony Richardson will definitely have those numbers to back up that award. So I'll go Anthony Richardson here.
Okay. I'm torn on this one, Derek. I want to say Anthony Richardson, but I think for me, I got to stick with JT because, I mean, like I said, I think the offense is just going to run through him. I think he's just such a dynamic player. Like, it's hard for me, Derek, in my mind, to kind of go away from that. It's hard for me to say Anthony Richardson just because you talked about the availability factor. I know JT hasn't been the healthiest guy in the world, but I just feel like he is due for that type of season. I just feel like he is due. Well, I think Anthony Richardson, if he's healthy, is going to have a pretty good season offensively. I just can't go away from JT. I think he's the MVP and, as such, the offensive player for me for the Colts. It's just hard to do that, to go away from that to me. So that's kind of why I stand where I stand there. Now, this is where it's going to be interesting, Derek, because we're talking about now defensive player of the year. Who do you have for this one?
Defensive player of the year. I'm gonna throw a name out there, Cody, and it's probably not gonna be the name that everyone probably agrees with, but I think it's the name that everyone wants to be it. I'm going with Laiatu Latu here. Woo. With defensive player of the year. Listen, if he gets double-digit sacks this year, which some of us think that he definitely can, then I don't see any reason why you wouldn't give him that. Because, I mean, Cody, as much as I loved DeForest Buckner, I think he's one of the best players on this defensive line. And I love Zaire Franklin, too. And Zaire Franklin always be putting up them great statistical years. This guy's been nothing but one of the heartbeats of this team ever since he took over at that middle linebacker position. I'm not discrediting either of them. I'm just saying, if you get this young kid in here and he knows and he has the ability to go and get double-digit sacks as a rookie, then this kid deserves defensive player of the year, regardless of what DeForest Buckner and Zaire Franklin do on the field, because that is an insanely impressive feat from a young kid that's still coming into his own. So I'm going to go with the wild card. I'm going to go Latu here.
I think you're crazy for going against DeForest Buckner, man. There's no way I'm going against DeForest Buckner, as much as I love Laiatu Latu. And believe me, I love Laiatu Latu. You know this. Like, I think he's going to be legitimately defensive rookie of the year. But defensive MVP for the Colts, that's hard to go against, especially DeForest Buckner. Derek, I would probably have even 2 other players. I'd probably have Zaire and Kenny Moore ahead of Laiatu Latu, to be honest with you. And I could be talked into another one with Julian Blackmon. Like, I could. Now, I don't know if I'd go there, but I don't know. Like, as much as I like Latu, he is still a rookie. And so I'm not going to go to that jump yet. I'm not going to say he's defensive player of the year when a player like DeForest Buckner, who's an all-pro, is sitting there. I just can't. Now, I think also, Derek, one thing that I'm like, if Latu does what we hope he does, he's going to open up the opportunities for DeForest Buckner a lot more than he's had in year past, right? If he's starting to demand double teams, that's going to leave Buckner a lot more one-on-one opportunities, and frankly, opportunities he hasn't had pretty much in his entire career with the Colts. So I definitely believe for the Indianapolis Colts that DeForest Buckner's that guy. I don't think there's much debate to me. He's just so good, and he may not always put up like the stats where you're like, wow, or whatever. But to me, Derek, it's just hard for me to go against him. I just can't do it. All right, let's move on now to most improved. This one's going to be interesting. Who do you have, Derek, for most improved player in your mind?
Guys, football season is right around the corner. Definitely got to make sure you're getting in on the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. You guys can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks, guys. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with any entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. I mean, guys, look, I'm looking at some of these entries here. And if you're an Indianapolis Colts fan like myself, which you probably are because you're on here right now, well, I'm just looking at some of these season numbers here. And some of the stuff for Anthony Richardson, I have to get in on. Guys, we have one right here where it's 7.5 on the season rushing touchdowns for Anthony Richardson. Folks, Anthony Richardson had 4 rushing touchdowns in just 10 quarters of football last season. What do you think he's going to do this year when he's actually healthy and fully capable of going? Now, obviously, they're playing into the fact that they think he might get injured. Anthony Richardson doesn't. That 7.5 is an easy more when you want to talk into that one, guys. So make sure you are getting in on the action of getting some of these numbers for Anthony Richardson and other Colts players as well. Remember, guys, be sure to download the Prize Picks app today and use the code BTJ for your first deposit match up to $100. I think you and I are going to kind of agree on this one, and I'm going to go with Juju Brents here. We've talked about it in a couple videos before that we thought Juju Brents having a full off season really to kind of do a lot of things is definitely going to help him going into this upcoming season, where last year, he didn't get to play right away. He didn't get a chance to really do anything in the off season until he came back 2 weeks before the season started. So I think that this year he was mostly healthy. He's had a chance to be able to do some more things in camp and get more of those reps. And I think that is going to really help benefit him this year going into it. I like a couple other guys' odds of it, maybe Kwity Paye, maybe a couple other guys on the offense, maybe even an Alec Pierce. But I think from the importance standpoint, I'm going to go with Juju here.
Yeah, I had Juju as my original guy as well. I want to throw in a guy like Alec Pierce. I want to even throw in a guy like Nick Cross this year. Like, I would love to do that. That would make me happy, like super happy if that was the case. But yeah, I think Juju with the full off season, like he has more reason to believe that he's going to be the best of the guys we talked about, right? And from all accounts, he's looked really, really good when he's been on the field. So that's definitely a great thing. And seems like he's ready to go for week 1, which is definitely a positive step as well. So I'm excited, man, for what that looks like for Juju in year number 2. And if he can stay on the field this year, doesn't have any more freaking cleats in his face mask, I think we'll be good and we'll be set for Juju. So really excited about him. And then I think the last one we got to talk about, Derek, is Rookie of the Year. Rookie of the Year for the Indianapolis Colts. In my mind, Derek, there's only really 2 players that I would throw in here. That's obviously talking about Latu, and that's talking about A.D. Mitchell. Now, out of those 2, who do you believe, Derek, is going to be that guy? Or maybe there's a wild card that you're throwing in there.
Well, I mean, I already gave him the Defensive Player of the Year, so I might as well give him Rookie of the Year too. So I'll go with Latu in that sense. I mean, again, from all purposes, Latu is the early favorite in the NFL to win Defensive Rookie of the Year already. So I will definitely say Rookie of the Year for the Indianapolis Colts specifically, it's going to Latu.
Yep, I have to agree. I mean, the opportunity is right there for Latu. Like, he is ready to go. And I think, while I do believe A.D. Mitchell will have a big role in this offense, I mean, he still has Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, and, oh, by the way, the tight ends as well to compete with for targets. So, like, I don't know. Like, for me, it's like Latu, at least the day one impact. I think he has a lot more opportunity to shine right away. So I'm going to go Latu as well. And we already saw it in camp and Derek in the preseason as well. Like Latu, like we saw that with Mitchell, but Latu, whoo, I mean, he was beating like really good left tackles. Like, and that's impressive right there. I mean, he was beating, Bernard Ryman, he was beating Garrett Bowles, he was beating multiple guys, right, and making their lives very difficult. So that's a very good thing for the Indianapolis Colts. So I think Latu as well for me in that. So, guys, that does it for our predictions. So, once again, just so you know, the 5 predictions: MVP, Derek said JT. I also said JT. Offensive Player of the Year, Derek said AR. I stuck with Jonathan Taylor. Defensive Player of the Year, Derek went a shocker and took Latu there. I think he's crazy. I went to DeForest Buckner on that one. Moving on to the most improved, we both agreed on Juju Brents. We feel like Juju Brents is going to be that guy that's going to take a leap this year. And then Rookie of the Year, we both agreed Latu. So I think a lot of similarities, Derek, honestly. A few differences, a few kind of throwing out there a little bit, but I think mostly we're pretty aligned on what we think for the Colts this year. But man, it's going to be a fun year. I'm really looking forward to some of this. And obviously would love for multiple players to fulfill this and make it a lot harder on us. So that would be a great thing. But guys, let us know your thoughts. Are there any other players that you might throw into the mix as well when it comes to any of these 5 categories that we talked about here for the awards heading in to the 2024 season? Let us know all those things in the comments down below. Be sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, all that good stuff. But guys, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.